So we are heading back home. We just strapped up 3 cattle panels from the store. And where we get them from is Tractor Supply, because they have the most reasonable priced cattle panel that I've found in my city than a lot of the other big box stores. So we're getting all that. We're just heading back home. They're in the back. And actually, we don't even actually have our own pickup truck. And so we rent it. And so if you're in a situation where you don't even have a vehicle that is large enough to transport things like that, you can actually rent it. I know a couple of places where you can rent it from is Home Depot, and I'm not sure if Lowe's does, but I know Menards does as well, and that's where we rented this from. So for those of you gardeners that don't have a vehicle at all right now yet like that you can transport large items, considering renting a vehicle, it cost us for 75 minutes, it was like $18, something like that. And so it might take us about an hour and a half once we're finished and done with unloading and all of that. But it's just good resource to know. And yeah, that's my tips about that if you're needing to rent a vehicle in the time being while you're doing some gardening work. That requires a large transportations of items. As we're getting ready to prep this, I know people are wondering the cost and the size. It costs $32.99.
And it was about 16 by 50.
Okay, so we're getting ready to prep it for the garden. There's some things we need to do first. So can you explain what it is that you're actually doing here?
Yes, I'm taking an angle grinder and we're cutting the cattle panel in half. And at the same time, we're just grinding down some of the edges so that it's not too sharp or it could, poke or scratch it. And just make sure when you're doing this that you use gloves and you wear proper glasses because you get little sparks, but it seems to just cut pretty easy through. It's actually kind of fun.
It's kind of fun. It was fun doing this with you. Well, really standing behind the camera and helping you sometimes. But can this project be done as an individual, or do you need extra hands?
If you have the right equipment to hold it, which is pretty big, it's better off to do it with a partner to help you.
All right. So can you explain this next part here? What is it that you're doing with those tops, pointed areas?
Well, those are the edges that we cut the corner panel and the cattle panel in half. And what I'm doing is I'm just cutting off the spikes parts. Um, I prefer to use the grinder because, like, at the same time, I could grind down the spike edges, or you could take a sharp wire cutter and just cut it off. But once you get into a rhythm, it's just really easy to cut and cut down. But let me say this to you: when you're cutting it, make sure you pick up those metal pieces because you don't want to leave any metal shavings or spikes where you can ride over with your tire.
Mm-hmm. Last year, I remember you using something different to cut those.
Yes, we had some bolt cutters which we're using to cut, and it works pretty good. But this saves a lot of time if you have the right equipment
True.
because you could just sand down the edges because they can be kind of prickly once you cut it with a pair of bolt cutters, and that just it just knocks out two things at the same time.
Right. Smoothing it out is important because when you're gardening and you're harvesting and you're touching plants and vining them up, the trellis, you don't want to get scratched, poke, or cut from sharp edges. So it's
Definitely,
important to smooth it out.
definitely, yeah, because you don't want to injure yourself.
And these extra pieces now that you see laying there, those actually can be used for anything else. If you're wanting to use it for trellising or just use it for anything else, you can get creative with those extra pieces that now are separated from the large cattle panel.
Yes, and you can see me using the bolt cutters just to cut it and get the edges down. But again, bolt cutters or a grinder would work. But I'm using the particular bolt cutters because I keep that end long on purpose. We decided to because we could allow it to go into the ground and it could be a firm start for the cattle panel.
Got it. You're really good at this.
Well, hey, teamwork is good stuff. It's kind of
Yes,
fun.
yes. All right, so let's go ahead and cut the other side. And any of this extra material can be used for other kind of trellising. You can use it for things, so don't ever discard it. You can use this as well and be creative and use it for different things. All right, so that is it. And we're actually going to go ahead and just lay these down until it's time for part two to pretty much to set it up in the actual garden. So make sure that you look out for the next video that will be coming on how to actually set it up in the garden.